Not everything you do has to be profound. We don't always immediately understand the impact or importance of our photographs. One of the best and worst habits I ever picked up in postgraduate education was needing to try to fit my work into a wider narrative or concept. It's great to think about working in series, but it also works as an extreme discouragement, not only to art making in general, but to creative thinking and free exercise. Now, this is sort of a thought exercise in 3 parts, so hopefully you'll want to stick around till the end because I kind of like where this is going. And also I've got a lot of photos all along the way and a variety of photos. I didn't have a major goal for this session with Ali and Veronica, but I knew I had some Ektachrome and 100 and Provia 100F and I wanted to shoot, and they knew each other in high school, so it was kind of a perfect excuse for everyone to kind of meet up and take some photos. So if I were to get into the thinking of I need to have a goal or a series for these photos, I wouldn't have even bothered with these because they don't fit into a series. These are somewhat fashion, somewhat casual portrait, somewhat snapshot in nature, although I would say that they're closer to casual portrait or fashion. But as it goes with a lot of art, there's a great bliss in ignorance. When you're beginning, you just enjoy taking photographs and just using anything you can get your hands on, taking photos with anyone or anything. And a lot of that gets lost when you become a more serious art maker. You get the idea that everything has to be part of something bigger, and if it's not, you're just completely wasting your time. And I've fallen really hard into that trap. And I've done a lot of series work, and right now I'm between series, and I'm waiting as patiently as I can stand for the next series to come along. And I can tell you, every time, you're deathly afraid that you're just not going to have another idea and that you're done. Helping pull me back from that brink, who I'll thank briefly, are my patrons listed here on the screen. For as little as $1 a month, you can join my Patreon by clicking the link in the description or following the link you see on screen and signing up, and I try to make it worthwhile. But if nothing else, you support the channel and you have my eternal gratitude. Thank you for anyone who does anything or can do anything. It's really tempting to just sit around waiting for that next great idea, or to do research waiting for the next great idea, and that is one of the traps you can fall into if you get involved in the gallery world or the academic world, which often coincide, and they expect you to work in series, and they expect you to always be working on the new one or to have a huge body of work for one, and that's all wonderful. It's great, and I have done a handful of shows and series. And before we get too far, every medium format shot you've seen so far has been on Fujifilm Provia 100F, and every 35mm shot you've seen so far is on Kodak Ektachrome E100. But here's the thing, not everyone has a grand series in mind. Not everyone lives in a subculture or has some kind of special circumstance in their life that is an obvious thing to document. And that's awesome if you do. It really is. I'm not one of those people that it's very obvious for, and I think the most difficult thing in all of photography for me is figuring out my why. I mean, I like taking photographs, and I like what I take photographs of, but understanding why is a lot harder, and that has led me to a lot of frustration and difficulty. But also, I've found that in reviewing large amounts of work I've taken in a manner a lot like this, just going out and shooting things I find interesting, and then asking myself, why did I find this interesting? Why did I take this photo? And the answers are not as obvious as one might think. Now, how I justify these, other than I like photography and I want to take pictures and I like the social aspects of photography, is that if nothing else, these are test shots with Ali and Veronica, and the film and the location and the ideas. So while this shoot may not like land me in the Whitney or something, it's helping me become more familiar with the Kodak Ektachrome 100 or the Fujifilm Provia 100 or the Portra 800 I shot, or the Contax G1 or the Bronica ETRS I was shooting with. See how I'm fitting all this gear and filming? But yeah, Film prices are going up, and the economy isn't getting a lot better yet, but we're on the good side of price increases, really. They're not doing it to make you angry, but actually more of that in another video. Sure, you can use digital and get lots of stuff done, like lots of shots in, and that's really not a bad way to go. It's not a bad excuse to shoot, and it really helps you work out a lot of technical things. Like you'll notice some of these photographs are maybe a little underexposed or overexposed in circumstances, but that's exactly it. If I shot this on digital, I won't know how Ektachrome behaves because I'll have shot this on digital or I have shot this on a cheaper stock. The only way, without risking a job or something extremely vital on a deadline, to know how Ektachrome is going to behave in a strongly backlit situation is to test it out and get familiar with it. And yes, that means spending, I don't remember how much a roll of Ektachrome is, but you have to spend that money or else you're going to have to just kind of trust your instinct and the literature and your interpretation of that literature to know exactly how this is going to turn out. Or you resolve to spend some money on your art and learn it. And that means burning through some rolls of Provia and Ektachrome and seeing what they can do and pushing their boundaries. And really, it's the medium of choice, and I know money's not the easiest thing to come by, but this is an investment in your art too, just like getting a good camera or a good lens. So I find it utterly productive to go out and take these photos because by viewing a large body of work or a large amount of work, like I've done in the past for gallery shows or for zines, I've actually figured out themes and consistent ideas that appear in my work. And that's really a wonderful thing to do, even if you have an obvious idea. And you might say, well, that's cool, you know, you got a bunch of really awesome photos and you had two incredible models and the sun came out for you and you had a nice sunset. You get something out of it, you got your fashion photos. So you counter with, I have bad shoots and I don't have these models, and all I have sometimes is just kind of whatever I can walk around and see. Well, what about a shoot where things go completely off the rails and really I'm flailing to figure out what the point and inspiration of this shoot is other than having fun? Now, every city in Texas that I kept up with had like an inch of snow on the ground at this point and a lot more. And we didn't even have flurries at the beginning of the shoot. And everything I had thought of, every inspiration involved white ground and snow and everything. And as you can see, by the end, we got some flurries, but it wasn't really accumulating yet. And so it just turned into a location test. And that's okay though, we had fun. And the dynamic and experience will pay off in photographs. Speaking of which, I actually think I got a few nice ones. I shot the 120 on Portra E100, and I shot some 35mm on Portra 160. And a black and white photo you'll see is on Fomapan 400, which is something I shot for the very first time. So now not only did I get this fun action photo, but I actually got my snow photos later too. It did snow a lot, and I decided to drag myself out at 10 o'clock at night with my Mamiya RZ67 and a roll of Ektar 100 to see what I could do. So it was really cold, it was really dark, and the only light was that street light and whatever moonlight was reflecting off of the snow. I don't really do a lot of night shooting, that I understand that the sensitivity of the film changes with a longer exposure, and that's an overly simple way of describing reciprocity failure, but I use this chart to figure out my times, which were between 5 and 10 minutes, and it was very cold, but let's see what I got. I become the next Todd Hido or Jason Kummerfeld? Probably not, but I have no idea how these will play into my future work. But it's great that I took them, because now I have this experience.